Good evening. It is Tuesday, May 19th, 2015. This is The Refinery, where grassroots organizations come together to refine conservative messaging into conventional wisdom. I am Leslie Price from the Conservative Union. With me tonight is Ryan Bickmore, also from the Conservative Union. From Free Radical Network, we have J.D. Bryden and She Who Must Not Be Named. And from the Party of Choice, we have Corey and Andy Pate. And we are live every Tuesday night at 8:45 Central on the refineryshow.com. You can go there anytime to watch, listen, and subscribe to the show via YouTube or podcast. That is therefineryshow.com. Join us live right now. We are chatting. Well, I will be as soon as I log in, but everybody else is. Anyway, on this busy Tuesday night, I'm a little over-caffeinated, so if I'm talking really fast, it's because of Mountain Dew. Thank you very much. That was a non-paid advertisement for Mountain Dew. Anyway, sugar-free, by the way, because who needs so much sugar when there's enough caffeine in the world? And tonight we wanted to first start talking about the Amtrak crash. That happened, actually, while we were on air last week, the Amtrak derailment. As most of us know, Amtrak is the massively federally subsidized train system in the Eastern Corridor. JD is the only person on this show who might possibly have ever ridden Amtrak. Joe Biden rides it all the time because rich people ride Amtrak. And it is a government-subsidized monopoly that manages to lose tons and tons and tons of money every year because they simply can't get their act together with the ability to transport people. And they get tons of funding. There's always increases of funding for security and all sorts of things every year. And there's massive infrastructure spending always on high-speed rail and Amtrak because those are things that the elites of the world want us to have. In order to be a world-class country, we have to have high-speed rail, and it has to be free and stuff because whatever, because trains are good or something.
I
And
wish it were free. I mean, it's really expensive to go down to DC. Are you kidding me? It's like,
on Amtrak, really?
yeah, it's annoying. It's like, $90 for a round trip ticket. That's a lot.
No, it's really not. But whatever. Okay, it's $90 for you, and how much is it costing me to put you on a train to go
Do
back
do
and
I
forth?
care? Do I care
No, you
about what you
don't.
Texans have to do to subsidize my train travel? I will say I'm very annoyed that there is no train to Ohio for defending the Dream Summit because I would have totally taken that.
Of course you would. There should be trains everywhere because trains. Um, something, something trains. Anyway, the massive derailment that happened last week, 9 people died. Uh, the train was going twice the posted speed limit. It has a well-paid, federally paid government employee train conductor who drives the train. And I don't know how trains work, but I know how other vehicles work, like buses and airplanes and cars and stuff like that, and bicycles. And generally, the person who's driving it determines the speed. Is that not the case with trains? I mean, I'm not looking to point fingers and cast blame here, but I really don't think that Republicans who cut the budget are to blame for this one wreck. I don't think curved track is to blame. I don't think a lack of a safety system that automatically prohibits the train from going too fast is to
Which
blame.
was on the track. It was
It was
there. There
right,
was
just
one
not
there,
enabled
just
something.
not on.
Yeah, I there have been probably thousands of trains driving that route, going around that curve, that did not derail. And the difference is the conductor was driving too fast. And, now he doesn't remember. And, of course, as with any big tragedy, the conspiracy theories are rife. And, there may be some bizarre hacking explanation of something took over the electronics of the train. The conductor has total amnesia. He doesn't remember. And there really is, at this point, from what I've seen, no explanation for why it was going so fast. And I don't know that there's much question about the fact that it was going that fast is why it crashed, is why it derailed. I think the speed is the cause of the derailment. But what they're now trying to figure out is why was it going so fast? And the conductor's lack of memory is going to hamper the investigation a little bit. But, they didn't even have all of the passengers accounted for before the leftists in the media and in government blamed it on budget cuts and began to scream for more money, and that this was all because of budget cuts and sequestration and austerity and all of the things that really never even happened.
Can I say three things?
Please do.
Because I like to just simply what to say to people. Number one, they never let a good crisis go to waste. You have people dead, and they immediately use it for political gain. Number two, they squander hundreds of millions of dollars and immediately want to blame the taxpayers for not forking over more when union run Amtrak has this terrible thing happen. Okay, suddenly I'm spacing the third. Sorry, but it blows my mind that
Department of Energy. Oh no, wait, that was the other. I'm thinking of three things and can't remember the third. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
Flashback to the Rick Perry debate moment.
It's okay. It's just so sick. It's so sick. They blow hundreds of millions of dollars. They will not let the free market run the thing because they set something up that won't make money in the free market. It's not profitable. So here they prop something up that's not profitable, which takes billions, like a billion every year roughly, of dollars just to keep it afloat. They squander hundreds of millions, and then when they have an accident, they immediately blame the taxpayers. And you can say, well, no, they're blaming Republicans. Yeah, but who elected them? They're blaming the taxpayers for electing people who wouldn't take more of their money. That's who they're blaming. It's ridiculous.
Look, when I first heard about it, I was sad about the crash, and I could not believe how quickly politicians and the media on the left came out and tried to politicize this. We knew from the start it was clearly a case of it going too fast. We don't know the reason why, but it has nothing to do with politics in any way. Budget cuts or spending more or whatever. There's just no way to inject politics into this, and somehow they managed to do it within a few hours, and it is so disgusting that they would try to profit and gain power and influence off of the deaths of people and try to turn everything into a political fight. It's so disgusting that people would do that to me. Why anyone listens to any of these people is just beyond me. I do not understand how you can see them act like this, do things like this, and still support them.
It is completely disgusting. One of the things that we found this week in getting ready is Molly Hemingway piece in the Federalist talking about the word theodicy. And I'd never heard this word, but it is it attempts, she says, to defend God's goodness and omnipotence in light of the existence of evil. Why do bad things happen to good people, or something like that? Well, I hadn't heard of that. I know the concept, but I hadn't heard of it put that way. But her argument in her piece in the Federalist is that this is how the left treats government as a religious being, even, and that if there's something wrong with the way that government is operating, there are other causes than the inherent goodness of government, and that they have to, because it's a religion to them, they have to frame arguments this way, that there's not enough funding, or there's not enough attention, or there's not enough, what's the word I'm looking for, awareness of an issue. Because if there were more awareness, more people would support more government spending about whatever it was. And so she goes into the way that this is used, and she cites some examples of leftists really reaching for this. She says, instead of contemplating how fleeting and out of control life can be, we begin with the question, why do bad things happen to good administrations? And then parenthetically she says, trick question, the conservative or libertarian might respond, there are no good administrations. And so it requires that you defend the goodness of government control or subsidies or whatever, because government is not fallible. We're the ones that are not doing it right by not funding it. And though it's a heinous and crazy perspective, it makes sense of what they're doing.
It's really weird that you put it like that, and that she puts it like that. But it is a really apt comparison. Mm-hmm. But this isn't a god like the Christian God. This is a god like Zeus. This is a god that we need to be offering our sacrificial rams to in order to stay appeased, in order for us to stay safe from the lightning and the thunder and the rain and the elements. We need to constantly be putting in, because if we aren't putting in our fair share, if we aren't contributing that sacrificing those virgins, then we're going to suffer miserable, horrible, terrible deaths. And
it's a very pagan religion type of thing. You're exactly right, and that makes more sense than comparing it to the Abrahamic religions, because the God of Abraham that's a whole different thing. But the pagan tradition of the sacrifices that you were to make to your Greek or your Roman or your Inca gods, whatever, that kind of mentality is the way they look at government, is the god that they have to sacrifice to and please, and anything bad that happens is because they have displeased the gods. And what was also characteristic of pagan civilizations is they got all interested in the personal lives of their gods. They told stories all about it and were fascinated by gods pretending to live like them. And people do that with government. You can kind of see it. And it makes sense to kind of understand the parallel there. Human beings need, there's a physical, I've even seen studies about a place in the brain that is stimulated when people believe in God. There's a reason that humanity believes in gods. We have this need to do so. And when you're not going to believe in the Christian God or the Jewish God or the Muslim God or whatever, or the Buddhist God, if you're not going to believe in one of those gods, then government replaces it. And since government has been really, really busy with destroying the family and trying to replace your desire for the family with the government, it does make sense that every single problem has to be analyzed and looked at in terms of your core religion and your core religious belief. And it also explains why the people who are so central government behave as if they are so morally superior. Because that's the other really annoying thing about all these leftists, is that they will dance on the graves of the Amtrak passengers, telling us that we need to donate more money, we need to give more money at the point of a gun to government, and they will do so from the standpoint that they are the ones who are morally superior to us.
Well, because we're heathens. Go ahead, Ryan.
So Leslie reminded me when she was talking about personalizing gods, and the left personalizing and stuff like that. So some famous guy, I guess, joined Twitter today again or something. But Bill Clinton tweeted at him something like, hey, that's a pretty cool Twitter handle. Does that come with the job, or something like that? And then Obama's intern or whoever runs his account tweeted back, yeah, it goes with the House. Do you know anyone who's interested, or something like that? And it was pretty clever. It was kind of funny. But then I thought to myself, both of these families' backstories and personality and everything about them is so carefully thought out, pulled, and crafted that it's so sad that this little exchange probably had polls for a few weeks. Some interns wrote these. It's all set up and fake, and it's so sad that they can't even do something that simple because they've got to set them up perfectly. So.
And how many people are going to be just delighted and thrilled and amused at how cute that is, and isn't that clever? And Obama's just so like all of us, and Bill Clinton is just awesome because we want to believe that our gods are just like us. It's pretty sickening.
I kind of want to ask them, are you basically saying that government, once again, are you basically saying government is now our God? But are you guys basically saying that government, the only thing keeping it from doing everything and creating this utopia and having, railways that never have accidents and so forth, is that we are not giving it enough money? I just want to put it right to you. Is that it? Is it just that we're not giving? So, we're not sacrificing enough virgins to the volcano because, as I remember, and this is the first point, by the way, right at the beginning of Obama's presidency, over and above all the rest of the money that we give to the government for infrastructure, we sacrificed another 787 million virgins to the god of infrastructure. Okay, the stimulus. We gave you $787 million that you frittered away immediately, gave to all your union buddies, and now there are people dead on an Amtrak train when you were taking infrastructure money and blowing it elsewhere. So don't tell us that the problem isn't that we haven't thrown the problem is that we haven't thrown enough virgins into the volcano. The volcano is stuffed. The lava receded. It can't even burn anymore. We stuffed so many virgins in it. Okay? Your God failed. If a God has to have an eternal source of money coming from the outside, it's not a very powerful God.
The solution to every leftist made-up problem or sin, since we're putting it in a religious context, is to give them more money and more power. Global cooling, the world's going to end, the polar ice caps are going to freeze over, and we'll be in a deep winter and everyone will die. Give the left in power more power. Global warming, the ice caps are going to melt and we'll all be underwater. Give them more money, give them more power. Climate change, we're not quite sure what's going to happen, but we're all going to die somehow. Give them more money, give them more power. We have a stock market crash. Give those in power more money and more power. Every time, whatever thing they feel like trumpeting at the time, that's always the solution. Give us more. As Andy said, feed us more virgins. Sacrifice more children to us. Whatever.
Ryan,
that's always the thing. Give us more money, give us more power.
Ryan, you tell me this. No, stay on here. I need to ask you a question. You tell me this. Name a religion in America that if we gave them the Mormon faith, the evangelical faith, the Catholic faith, whatever, the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, the Buddhist faith, you give me one where we gave them $787 million more dollars than they normally bring in, and you tell me that they could not perform relative miracles compared to what our government does. How can you take in that much more money, okay, and not have a train run? Come on.
Well, all those churches you mentioned do far better with far less money.
Yes.
When you see any natural disaster out there, Mormons, Catholics, and evangelicals are on the front lines. FEMA's still stuck back in Washington. They don't get there for a few more weeks. By the time they get there, it's all cleaned up.
Right. And even America used to do a better job with massive amounts of money. Remember the ad that Rachel Maddow did that a couple of people saw, where she was talking about how Americans did big things, and she's standing in front of Hoover Dam. And the fact is, yes, Americans used to do very big things, and we used government as the tool to achieve it. In some instances, we were able to get big projects done, and Hoover Dam is actually kind of questionable anyway, but it was something big that government did, and it happened. And in those days, we could do stuff, and we could build an Empire State Building, and we could make big, massive infrastructure investments. The Tennessee Valley Authority, much as it was cronyism and FDR crap and a make-work project for a lot of people who were out of work, it did actually do some good, and it was accomplishments that you can look at and say, yes, this is what our money bought. But what can we look at and say, this is what our $787 million bought? It bought nothing. It enriched a lot of very rich people. It made some very rich people super rich, and it made medium people a little richer, and it made a lot of people unemployed when their subsidized companies went out of business anyway. Look at Solyndra. How many people had a short-term job at Solyndra and then were out of work, and how much is the environment damaged because the solar cells from Solyndra are now out there rotting, and there are abandoned buildings. But there are people who got very, very wealthy off of the subsidies that we paid to these green energy companies. Right. But we do not have, even after all of the money that we've invested, we have nothing to show for it.
But that's
we have jack squat to show for it because we're not able to do anything anymore.
Well, but Leslie, it's not that we're not able to do anything, it's that our motives have changed. The big projects that you mentioned earlier were truly, even though I hate this phrase, they truly were for the greater good. They were accomplishing something that would benefit tons and tons of people. But the things that you just described, whether it was Solyndra, the cronyism, etc., those are things that people are voting for themselves. I can't remember which founding father it was, but he said that the society will, or that the government can only last as long as people won't vote themselves raises from the public treasury. It's a bad paraphrase, but you get the point. And so when we're constantly doing these special interest projects in crony capitalism and all of that, it harms the greater good and it only benefits the insiders.
I tell young people, I say, that $787 million, that all came out of your pocket, okay? Because that all went directly into the deficit. That's all going to be paid by young people, all of it. Not by old people like me who are near dead. It's all from you. You're paying every single dime of it. And let me ask you something. You gave $750 billion over what you were taking in, they were already taking in taxes, added to the deficit that you're paying with interest. Here's the question. Where are the roads? Where are the bridges? Where are the freaking jobs?
Every single speech is about how we have to invest more in infrastructure.
Right.
All we ever invest in is infrastructure.
My goodness. All they did was put you guys $750 billion further in debt on top of everything else they've been plowing on you. And now they're saying we need money for infrastructure. You've got to be kidding. What would you do if you had a friend who you loaned $50 just because they wanted to buy lunch, but they said, you know what, McDonald's is going to cost me a lot today. Can I have $50? And you're thinking, that's so crazy, I'll do it. Here you go, $50. And then they come back and say, I need money for McDonald's. Okay, they took $750 billion, which is way more than they should have needed since they were already bringing in taxes, and now they're coming to you for more money. What do you think, young people?
And I think we're in the worst of both worlds, because if we were like back in the olden days when our government was smaller and there was an understanding that the federal government was to do as little as possible and the states were responsible for the majority of things that had to be done by government, and that the people needed to be freed to come up with their best ideas and do the most themselves, we were really prosperous and we got an awful lot of major wonderful things to happen. So when we were more libertarian as a nation, we got a lot of really good, wonderful stuff. On the flip side, you go over to communism and China is able to build a heck of a lot of stuff. They've got massive projects, massive dams and bridges and entire cities, and they are using more, like 3 times as much concrete every year as we are. They're paving the heck out of their entire nation. So full communism can accomplish a lot. Libertarianism can accomplish a lot, but we're sort of this diseased husk of a little bit of neither and an awful lot of just selfishness and cronyism and an absence of a unifying philosophy that can actually get anything done. And so we're spending a lot and we're churning a lot and we're accomplishing a big fat nothing. Yay!
Yeah, I think you just killed the
Yeah, I did that.
killed the discussion right there.
Well, if I can sew it up when I'm still talking to a young person, let me tell you, folks, when you talk to them about they just blew $750 billion of your money, and then you look at them and say, here's the kicker. This is what happens when you have people who don't have a competitor and you give them all this money. They're not McDonald's competing against Burger King, against Subway, against Burger King, and all of them having to give you the best value meal. They're not competing to give you the most for your money. They have no competitor. You gave them $750 billion that's coming directly out of your pocket. You got nothing. And instead, while you're scraping by, hoping, begging for a living wage, which is ridiculous anyway, that money went to union members who are living on the outskirts of cities and mansions. What do you think?
I think that's a disgusting proposition. I think it's something that,
And here's the question: how do we conservative message our way out of that? I don't even know. We're and I'm participating in this as much as everybody. We're expressing an awful lot of anger, and I don't know how we. The big thing is, how do we turn that around? And what do we do?
I mean, I think at the very least, what Andy said is right and accurate. Is just explaining the situation. I mean, that's the best we can do. We have, and that's the thing, is that this is presented, all these to go back to what we were talking about before, all of these virgin sacrifices are designed to are explained as good stuff. They're explained as the best, the stuff that we really need, stuff that's good for us.
Yeah, government is another word for things we do together.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's really hilarious, is that the left is all, if you listen to social justice warriors on the left, if you listen to all of these people, the thing that they hate, one of the things that they hate, the words that they hate the most, is paternalism. And that's really what we're talking about here. I mean, that's, if you want to describe American government, paternalistic, that's a good word. That's kind of what the whole of the left's strategy is paternalistic. It absolutely is. It is degrading and paternalistic.
And I agree with Andy that the thing has to be, we just repeat. They took $750 billion of your money and your children's money for infrastructure, and now a disaster happens, and they blame infrastructure and ask for more money. They know it works. Okay, yeah, $750 billion, or I don't know, it was huge. $750 billion, huge, just unfathomable numbers. I can't even. It's billions, trillions, and there's a huge difference, but I can't keep it straight because it's all more money than I even want to deal with. But if we keep repeating and keep reminding people, I think, that we've already sunk tons of money into infrastructure, and every single time something happens, the cry is, it's about infrastructure. Is it just that we need to keep repeating it, and that'll maybe sink into people?
I think too that if we praise it as this way, walking through the steps Andy was talking about, how much money they took, you have two options. If you can look around and say that there are still not the jobs that we need, the infrastructure is still not in the shape it needs to be in, then one of two things have happened. They've taken the money and haven't spent it in the places where it needed to be spent, which is highly likely, or there's far more that they keep wanting to spend, but we're trusting the wrong people with it. And I think making those questions happen in a person's mind, why would all that money have been spent and yet we don't have these things? Either, again, they didn't spend it right, or you're giving the money to people that you can't trust. Well, I contend that most people in government are not trustworthy with large sums of money, and that's why I want government to do fewer things and people to do more, because there's better checks and balances on people than there is on government. I mean, that's an angle I would take.
What a sad statement that is. Anyway, I think we should probably try and get to the next story here, since it's something that we've kind of had in the queue here for a while on the refinery. It's a really hard to talk about. It's one of those things that doesn't get very much attention until recently. In fact, it's gotten so much press recently that it's caused a response from Governor Cuomo in New York to come out and say that something must be done about it. And I know that that Corey was pretty passionate about the story, about what's going on with illegal immigration and the business of getting nails done. I mean, it's the way that this industry has sort of been taking advantage of people is crazy. And there's some other sides to the story, but it's a mess.
Yeah, and Fishy, I know you read this article too, so feel free to jump in anytime. But when this article was brought to our attention last week by a mutual friend, it was talking about the nail industry and how in New York a lot of salons are exploiting immigrants, whether they're here legally or illegally. Many of them don't speak good English, if much at all. They have hardly any money. They're sharing apartments with tons of families or family members or friends or even complete strangers. And so it's painting this really bleak picture of survival and what these poor women are going through just so that they can come to America and start a new life. And then it starts talking about how many of them find work in these nail salons, but there's a catch. They have to pay to be trained, and then once they are trained and they've worked there for a while, they're not paid. And then once they finally are paid, they're paid far below minimum wage because the salon owners are saying, well, but you can do nails and you can do pedicures and you can do manicures and you'll get tips. You can just live off your tips. And then the story goes on and it gets even more depressing, and it talks about how these owners are just really taking advantage of these women, and they're fining them for things like spilling nail polish and things like that. And so this whole entire article, which is really quite lengthy, was using these women and their plight as a reason to invite more government regulation in nail salons. And so it was listing off all of these things that need to be done, and I don't have them all right in front of me, but I got to thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute, we already have laws in place regarding the hours that you work. So if you have to work 12 hours in a day, you have to have lunch breaks, you have to have other breaks throughout the day. That's just the law. Even if you work 8 hours a day, that's the law. You're supposed to be paid a minimum wage. You have to have sanitary working environments. There's laws to protect against abuses in the workplace. And so I got to thinking, and I was like, is the answer that we need more government regulations, or is it that we need to enforce the regulations that are already there? And so that's kind of the way that I was looking at this article. It's just that if you have people who don't respect the law to begin with, what good is it to add 20 new laws and regulations to what's already existing? because they've already proven they don't care about the ones that exist. So adding more isn't going to scare them into submission.
Well, that's
Exactly.
similar philosophically to the people who want to put in place more gun laws because criminals don't obey laws in the first place, so more gun laws are useless. Criminals don't obey our immigration laws and our employment laws, and they take advantage of, the reason they can take advantage of these employees is because these employees are illegal. This is slavery. How is it any different from slavery? And it is not only government sanctioned, at this point, it's government encouraged.
And here's the crucial thing I think that makes this such a valuable story, other than just people, talking about, oh, these nail salons and the practices that they have. When we talk about what happens when people come here and are here illegally and try to find work, and we acknowledge that whole idea that people are coming here for a better life. Most people that come here are. Most of us can agree on that. But what happens is, because they are without documentation, because they are here illegally, it is so easy for them to be exploited in this manner, whether it's construction, whether it's nails, whether it's restaurant work, if that, is where they happen to be. Any kind of profession in which someone is illegal, they are open to that exploitation, and they have no ability to do anything about it without running the risk of becoming afoul of the law themselves, to where a crime that they would report would not be seen as serious as the crime that they've committed and in being here illegally. Now, we can talk all day about the way that you got to fix the system, close the borders, whatever. But the key here that I think we can use to talk about this is that exploitation. The people who own those salons are people who have connections with those home countries. And that's easily investigated and looked into and inspected to make those people follow the laws that are on the books. The people that are in other kinds of businesses, may not have necessarily direct connections to home countries, but they have connections to people who work those angles and get people here. And it's a whole entire exploitation industry. And that by enforcing immigration laws and by enforcing these health codes and labor laws that we already have on the books, we are preventing the exploitation of people in this manner. People who are forced to work for nothing or for $30 a day maximum or something like this. And the exploitation angle is something I don't think conservatives use enough. There's just that knee-jerk rejection of people that are here illegally, regardless of their situation. And I think it's an oversight on our part that if we start talking about it in terms of exploitation, we might be able to make some headway with people who really haven't thought much about the issue but would be irate if they knew the conditions under which some of these people are working.
It's not just they took our jobs, it's they took our jobs and are being treated like slaves. I mean, there's kind of a pretty big point to make there, and I think it's one that we can and should make, and it's something that we should be able to do fairly easily, given the conditions that these people are working in and under. And it's mind-boggling to me that we have focused so much on the red meat issue of they took our jobs and harumphing over that, and have completely ignored, to a large extent, this entire other facet. And it's not just in nails. Nails is just one of the very, very many different industries where we have people who are being treated as, indentured slaves to these workplaces.
It's human trafficking of another sort.
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys,
It absolutely is.
Well, wait a minute. But these are all great points. I agree with them fully. But the left's answer to this is very simple. Legalize them. Okay? If that's your concern, the second we say, look, our concern is they're being exploited, well, the problem is they're being exploited by their own choice, their own decision to be here illegally. And so the left's answer is, if you care, if you say you care about them, then give them what they really need, and that is legalize them so they'll be protected by all these laws that you say would benefit them.
I think that there's an argument to be made for that. The question that I have is what comes first. And I think you have to do the enforcement of what's already on the books first. And then you can move to that point. And I don't think anybody could argue with that.
I agree with the woman who just spoke, but I mean, we have to find a way to stem the flow of the immigration coming in. And I think the ways we can do that are increase legal immigration, encourage them to come here legally, and if they're here illegally, I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm willing to listen, but maybe we send them back. Maybe we give them a path to citizenship. Maybe they pay a fine. I don't know. Definitely up for discussion as long as we try our best to secure the border and encourage legal immigration and figure out ways to stem that.
The way that this gets solved, ultimately, is the way that it cannot be solved, and that is by going after businesses. And businesses that are in large dollar, especially large dollar industries, will do all they can to lobby against enforcement of labor laws like this in these conditions because they don't want to have to deal with that, and so they will donate and lobby candidates and politicians in order to make sure that they don't have to see these laws enforced. When laws are enforced and businesses are the ones held accountable, not the illegal immigrants, but the businesses are the ones penalized over and above what they could be possibly making in terms of cheap labor benefits. When businesses get taxed or fined or people get thrown in jail for doing it, that's when this becomes changeable. But because of the nature of the system and the amount of money they will pour into doing things like lobbying and donating to candidates, it's almost impossible to get that done.
But for very effective messaging on this, I'm actually going to turn to Scott Walker. I really like how he's addressed this, and I know that's kind of surprising for me, because his messaging is usually not his strength. He's a doer, not a speaker. But and I don't want to go too far into illegal immigration; it would take the whole show. So I'll just say this. He says he's all for a path to legalization, not citizenship, but legalization, and for reform and all that. But he said, look, whatever we put in place after we shut down the border, and then put this path, it all then has to be slowed to the pace that benefits the American worker first. The American worker has to be benefited first. We cannot take people in inexhaustibly without first saying, are there enough jobs? Because the bottom line is the numbers show all of the job creation that's happened under Obama has gone to illegals on average. And the really sad thing is a lot of jobs have been lost. Most jobs have been created actually by the oil and gas industry. But that means that a lot of people who are not illegal who are not immigrants, have been losing jobs, and those were replaced by immigrants. I think it's great messaging on Walker's part because the American people want to hear that. They want to hear, look, yes, we want to seal the border. Yes, we want to provide a pathway, but we want to put the American worker first in deciding how fast people come through.
Right, and that's a message that goes into inner cities and urban environments where people are suffering from 2 and 3 times the national unemployment rate as well. That can be used to talk to those communities as well.
And not to mention that's a place where the kind of jobs that illegal immigrants take, those jobs are at a premium. That's exactly where they're most needed. Those sort of entry-level jobs that help you actually get situated and move on to further and better jobs. That's the sort of jobs that are missing. It's hard to it makes sense that this would be a message that is effective in inner cities, and we've talked about it before. it's part of this cohesive message that we need to build around immigration.
Yeah, and also, Fishy, something that you just said kind of made me wonder, if these companies and these corporations are willing to pour so much money into lobbying, what's wrong with our employment law in this country that it makes it more expensive to employ legal people than it does to employ illegal people? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. And then going off of what you were just saying, JD, something else that I thought was interesting that goes along with this nail story is that now Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, is using these situations, these stories about these poor abused women in these nail salons to try and push through higher minimum wage, which is only going to shoot them in the foot because it'll be fewer jobs and, you know, everything that we talked about last week on the refinery.
And if they're not enforcing the wage laws that are in place now for
Right.
these people, how does that even benefit them? It doesn't. It's a posturing stance.
Well, actually, and you're right, and Fishy, it goes, and let me ask you this, if you can come back here. Doesn't it do the opposite? Aren't you providing an incentive to hire more illegals? Because you're cutting the lowest rungs off of the beginning of the ladder of success to the American legal worker. Well, they still need workers, and they're going to get them where they can get them. Aren't you? I mean, aren't you just? It's kind of like, well, that would take too long to explain. But aren't you just encouraging them to hire more illegals? Isn't that what you're doing?
It's absolutely the case. That's exactly how it works. People respond to incentives. They do.
Well, and what Cuomo's doing ties back to the first segment of the show. Government, when government is your God, government is the solution to everything. Cuomo is looking for more laws and more restrictions and more government to solve a very human problem. That enforcement of existing laws would solve the problem, but that doesn't put any additional cash into Cuomo's pocket. So he will increase the licensing rules and regulations and increase the certification because the companies that then will be able to compete on an unfair playing field, or to be able to increase the cost of entry into the business and eliminate some of these salons from being able to compete against them. The big nail salon industry is in Cuomo's pocket, and they're lobbying him to increase regulations, and that then allows Cuomo to get more money for a brand new, for enhancements and increases to the health department, and new training regulations, and a new department for certification, and more investigators to drive around, and it makes him a more powerful person. And it makes the companies that have the certified manicurists and the certified pedicurists, the people with the cosmetology degrees, it makes them able to stay in business and hire their certified people, and the fly-by-night nail salons have to go out of business because they aren't. It's similar. We've seen similar things with the having to have a license to do eyebrow threading and having to have a license to do hair braids and hair extensions. It's not for health reasons. It's to keep the competition out, similar to what GE does, similar to what Walmart does when they accept Obamacare. It's all about cronyism and using the government as a tool to eliminate your competition.
Right, and it's related to what you said there. We're going to talk about another story from it's watchdog.org, where the labor union representatives in, let me see, where was it? I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
It's Phoenix.
Phoenix, yes, are saying that, of course, you're going to have to break some eggs to make an omelet, that obviously $15 minimum wage is going to lose some people their jobs, but the work still needs to get done. People will still pay. The thinking is governments, people, regular customers will still pay to get things done based on that. And it's the same mindset. It's the same thinking, because what happens here is by increasing the minimum wage, what labor unions do is they tie their contracts to a factor of the minimum wage. So everybody gonna get a raise in the unions if they fight for this, but they can't be fired. And so you have small businesses, mom and pop restaurants, say, that can't afford to pay their workers $15 an hour, and their stores are going to close. McDonald's will shift and change and adapt with technology that the mom and pop restaurants can't do. And so McDonald's will still be making burgers. You're going to subsidize McDonald's with this kind of thing and keep them in business while you're driving mom and pop businesses out left and right. And that's what nobody talks about in terms of this kind of attack with the minimum wage laws they want to increase.
And oh, by the way, your burgers are going to cost a lot more. I mean, it's awful in every conceivable way.
I just have to wonder who would want to join a union when they expressly say, hey, people are going to lose their jobs because of this. Oh, yeah, it's okay. People are going to lose their jobs over this. But it's business as usual, and those people, they probably didn't need it anyway. It's fine. We'll just continue going on as usual, business as usual. But screw you, little guy who is, new into the business. You haven't paid your dues enough yet. So when we get around to it, we'll throw you a bone. But you have to wait in line first, and that's cool. Deal with it.
Isn't that a great pitch if you don't have anything else to offer as a union anymore to keep your numbers up? Is to say, well, you don't get a union, you don't join the union, you're not going to be able to get a job because we're going to put everybody else out of business.
I don't know. I mean, to me, I think it's pretty limiting on everyone there. It seems a little bit obnoxious to me. It would not make me. But then again, I'm a conservative. I don't know. Maybe that's different for me. Maybe I'm seeing it through red tinted glasses. But it just doesn't seem like an incentive to me at all. It sounds like something that I would be upset. I would be. If you're basically, it's extortion. That's all it is, and I don't think that people like being extorted. I don't think that they like having to pay a protection racket in order to get a job. It just, to me, that's not something that I think is attractive to people, and it certainly would make me want to campaign against this sort of stuff.
But again, the public wants a higher minimum wage. Poll after poll after poll says that, and even conservatives, quote unquote, want a higher minimum wage because it sounds good and it feels good, and the negative repercussions are separated from it. The benefit is direct. Your paycheck increases. The cost is indirect. Somewhere later down the line, the company doesn't hire somebody. Well, who cares? I can't tie that directly to my higher paycheck. And so how do we win these kinds of arguments where we're arguing against a living wage and everyone deserves a living wage?
I just
do you not care?
I just tell people, as minimum wage has gone up, have you seen the employment rate for young people? It's at catastrophically low rates. We also have the lowest labor participation rate in 35 years. So let me ask you this. Just how expensive do you want to make it for people to hire you?
Yep.
Okay. And, oh, by the way, much of your it won't just be the place where you get a job that pays 15. Everybody will be paying 15 everywhere you go to buy stuff. Walmart, McDonald's, and everywhere. That means everything you buy will go up in price, and so a lot of your 15 will be eaten away. So number one, you're going to lose much of the value of the 15, and number two, you won't have a job because because the bottom rungs in the ladder will be cut off because you made it more expensive to hire people. Why would you want that at a time of the lowest labor participation rate in 3.5 decades? That's insane.
But Andy, clearly you are just a shill for corporations because everybody knows that conservatives don't care about poor people, and that's why you hate the minimum wage. And I know that because President Obama said that, and he said that Fox News doesn't care for the poor people, and they put out really horrible caricatures of
Really,
people who are.
That's a great point. Let me come back. JD the liberal. Why? Please tell me something. How many rich people are at the lower rungs on the ladder?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that the rich people are retreating from society, and they're going into.
Already up. The rich people are on the top rungs. So if you cut off the lower rungs, how does it affect the rich? It affects the poor. It affects the poor. Yeah, the rich have to pay more, so they simply hire fewer people and automate. Okay, or they offshore, or they close down and move their money offshore. See, here's another thing. If a rich person has $10 million and they can open a company anywhere and make jobs anywhere and sell products anywhere, why would they do it in the most expensive nation on earth? You don't understand. It's their money. They can move that money to Indonesia. They can move that money to Mexico. They can move that money. So here's my question to America and to the American worker. How are you going to compete for that 10 million? See, you want every fast food restaurant to compete for your $10 and give you the best bang for the buck, which you should. So what is America doing to compete for their 10 million bucks? So they'll create jobs here. See, all you're doing is cutting the lowest rungs off the ladder. The rich aren't on the lowest rungs. You are. Your kids are. Okay? They simply move somewhere else. What do you think?
I think that's what Obama was talking about recently with this. Insane, really. It's just a horrifically stupid comments that he made. Especially, not just stupid, but the fact that it is so incredibly blithe of him to mention this stuff about the rich sort of retreating from society, causing all of the problems with for the country's poor. When you look at Obama and you look at his family and you look at the he pays more than many people earn in a year, each year for his kid's school, per kid. That's insane. When you're paying $35,000 for private school for your kids, maybe you should think twice about talking about the rich and how things are going there. Fishy, I know this is something that
I didn't even understand what he was trying to say with that exhortation about people who separate themselves, the rich who separate themselves from the rest of society, and he gave the examples of himself, where you go to private schools and you have your kids in private schools and you live behind your gated community. And so he was saying that it's a bad thing, apparently. And then what? I mean, what was his point in criticizing rich people? I didn't understand where he was trying to go with that.
Rich people are bad. Rich people need to be punished.
Yeah, but the thing is, the way to combat that is to constantly help people understand that the rich people are just like them. And that's why I go back to the $10 and the 10 million. Look, are you saying you want the rich people to not be like you? You see, with your $10, you're going to get the best deal you possibly can. Be it Subway, whatever. You're going to get the best deal you can for your $10. And you want them to not be like you and get the best deal for their 10 million or 10 billion? Look, it isn't just wages. It's the EPA regulations. It's the fact that you can't fire anybody without multiple lawsuits. It's corporate tax rates. Everything. We are not. America is like a McDonald's that is charging 3 times the price and doesn't have any value meals. Okay? And then we wonder why people don't want to spend their 10 billion here.
And it's not just that's another thing that I need to clarify, is that it's not just the rich people's fault that the American poor are poor. It's also the fault of faith-based organizations for not speaking out enough on poverty or doing enough about poverty. Yeah.
So my question is, you have President Obama, who has received more money from Wall Street and rich people than anyone in history. I mean, he's received billions, and he goes out and demonizes the rich every chance he gets, but these people keep donating to him. And I mean, the Clintons have hundreds of millions of dollars donated by billionaires to them as well. So why do these people keep supporting politicians who are going out and saying they're evil every chance they get and saying they're going to take all their money, turn the tables against them? Why? Why? Like, if someone's saying I'm evil, I'm not going to keep giving all my money to them, supporting all their policies.
Actually, Rush kind of talked about that a little bit today, and I heard Rush today for the first time in ages. And he was talking about this very thing, and you're going to appease the crocodile, and it doesn't matter whether the crocodile likes you or not. You're going to do what you have to do to appease the crocodile so that he doesn't eat you. You're going to give him money, which is what they're doing. They're giving a ton of money to Bill and Hillary Clinton and to Barack Obama. Wall Street is doing it. Big businesses are doing it, so that when the big government people create their big government, they create a big government that benefits GE and Walmart and Wall Street. They're buying. They're playing a very defensive game. They're buying the opportunity to write the rules against their competitors, or they're buying enough influence. It's not that they're trying to get Hillary to do them favors. They're trying to get Hillary to leave them the hell alone. And the Tea Party didn't give money to Barack Obama, so Barack Obama sicked the IRS on the Tea Party people who weren't giving him money. He did not sick the IRS on Media Matters and all of those guys, because all of those guys, the unions, all the teachers' unions and government employees and high-tech company employees, bought the opportunity to be left alone by Barack Obama and the overarching failed state. And that's what it is. They don't care whether Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton say stuff against them. They don't care. I don't care if you say how much you hate me. I'm going to give you money so you leave me alone.
It's kind of done with a wink and kind of bribery then, Leslie? Is that, I mean, it's kind of bribing here, I'll give you money, leave me alone, and wink,
Yes.
wink, I know you're saying that, but you're not actually going to do anything?
Yes, it is bribery.
So it's more it's really not, it's not bribery as much as it is, again, extortion. If you're in control of the situation, if you're in control of the cogs and in control of these huge entities that can make life hell on individuals and companies and everything. I mean,
they're paying off the mob enforcers. That's really what they're doing. It's in little neighborhoods, the mob comes in and collects part of your money because, nice little shop here would be a shame if something happened to it. That's exactly what it is.
It's a shame if we would have to, find that your carbon emissions are a little bit too high. We really need to have the EPA take a look at those smokestacks that you've got, see if we can figure out a way to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases you're emitting, because it could be bad for the environment if you open up another factory and employ some more people. But yeah, that's the price of the environment.
There are two reasons that people give to the Democratic Party. Two. One of them you guys have laid out brilliantly. It is to buy favor. It is, if you look at the massive donors to the Democrats, overwhelmingly, you will see deal after deal after deal after deal after law after law after law where they benefit financially far in excess of their donation. Okay? Again and again. Solyndra is one of a zillion examples. Obviously, the teachers' unions, they benefit because they don't have a competitor. And it goes on and on and on. The other reason is ideology. Simple hatred for the Judeo-Christian conservatism and also atheist conservatism. Hatred for anything free market. Just blind hatred and rage toward it.
So, but Andy, so many of them.
They will want to destroy ideologically, even if they benefited from it. I've got mine now, and I still want to destroy this thing, even though I benefited from it.
Yeah, if they made their money through capitalism, why do they hate it and are trying to destroy it then?
Well, for instance, a lot of them look at the example of athletes and actors. Okay, these are people, athletes, actors, and newscasters. These are people who made their money strictly off of a capitalist system, right? They won in the capitalist system, but they despise the capitalist system. But once they've made their money, they're fine. They still hate the system. And they look at themselves, and it's kind of like, well, I was fortunate, I was this, I was that. You know, I was a winner in life's lottery or whatever. Even though they will basically say, hey, I worked hard, but these other people didn't. Like I said, the main reason they do it is what Leslie was saying. They want to buy the referee so they can fix the game and get an advantage on their competitors. Okay, that's the main reason they give money to the Democrats. Is, you see, you give money to the right, Republicans and Libertarians, because you want a fair game. You give money to the left because you want to fix the game. But you also just, well, look beyond economics. Abortion, gay marriage, social issues. The big reason outside of getting an economic leg up is because you are very fixated on the social issues. That's where you get into all these tech giants like Bill Gates and the guys at Google and all of them. They are all, every single one of them, a massive social liberal who massively are completely dedicated to advancing social liberalism, and it means everything to them. So that would be the other main reason that I've seen.
You know, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fishy.
No, we talk a lot about the corruption in government. We talk about the deals and the deal making and things like this. And something really got to me today that I thought illustrated 2 points simultaneously. And that was, and I'm taking this completely out of the realm of everything we've been talking about, but not really. That was the outcry over Sunday night's episode of Game of Thrones. Now, you don't have to watch the show or even know very much about it to follow this along. The idea is that now that this episode happened, in which a very beloved and character that a lot of people cheered on got raped in a situation in which doesn't mirror the book. It doesn't happen in the book, the books at least not yet. And it was a surprise for everyone watching the show. The idea is that, a whole bunch of people are now saying that they are done with Game of Thrones because it's always been a show about rape. And it's just, they're done. Claire McCaskill had this to say. She said, okay, I'm done with Game of Thrones. Disgusting and unacceptable. It was a rocky ride that just ended. Donna Brazil said, sadly, this much is true, that Game of Thrones is a show about rape. Time to move on. People were just getting all out of sorts over this character. And the point that I wanted to make about that is that when you have a world in which, and this is what the universe of Game of Thrones is sort of like, warring entities battling for power and position, and people attempting to the few people that have some kind of power attempting to outdo each other, using thousands or millions even of people as pawns in their game, and that alliances need to be protected and maintained, and therefore some collateral damage in the form of injustices just get to go by because it's getting in the way. If I punish that guy who's my ally for something bad that he did, I can't use him as my ally. That is what happens in a society in which law is breaking down and that the king is law. And you have anarchistic almost situations in which everyone is just in survival mode and the powerful rule, and things like rape are commonplace, things like murder, things like theft, things like treachery, all of that is commonplace. Game of Thrones is sort of a tiny little bit of a view into the sort of system we could end up having that starts with things like an executive branch that chooses which laws to enforce or favors some instead of others. And the thing that all these people took out of this show is that it's rapey. Are you serious?
There's so much stupid about this. I mean, it just seeps through this whole story, and I think it was mentioned. I mean, they're getting upset over fiction, which these characters are doing basically what they were supposed to. I mean, this was not out of character for these people, for the characters involved. It was something that did not glorify rape. It showed how horrific it is. So if that's your problem right there, that this sort of grotesque illustration of how disgusting and awful rape is, if that's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's beyond me how they could have such a big problem with this, and then go into the fact that how many people are being raped and murdered and having horrendous things happening to them, being sold into slavery in the Middle East right now. And what are we talking about? Is Donna Brazil talking about that? Is Donna Brazil, keeping up to date with all the stuff that's going on with ISIS? Is that with Boko Haram, who I believe I saw a story about them posting pictures of a bunch of impregnated girls that just appeared on the internet? There's like, seriously, you're going to get upset about fiction that actually showed how horrific rape is? That's really what your line is. This is really what your train of thought is, Donna Brazil and Claire McCaskill. Really.
And I guess the question I have is, are all of the feminists looking for their safe spaces going to stop watching Game of Thrones? Do you really think that's going to happen in college campuses among college students?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm just tired of the fake outrage that we end up with. Phony, publicized, clickbait headline article. Everybody wants to get their moment of being the most outraged about something. And we take these people seriously, and we shouldn't. On no level should we take these women seriously who are complaining about how Game of Thrones has microaggressed against them for showing evil rape on TV. That's not, it's fundamentally unserious. Do you stop the world and try to address the deeper meaning of your child's tantrum when he's throwing himself on the floor in the middle of Walmart? No. You don't take him seriously because he's not worthy of being taken seriously. You take him outside and you make his behavior stop. And you make his behavior stop interrupting everyone else's productive lives. And what we need to do is treat these people on Twitter as if they are children throwing a tantrum, because they are. And we take them out. We don't let them interrupt our productive lives. It means we ignore them. It means we shame them or mock them. But we certainly don't take them seriously anymore. And that means if they are paid $105 million by ABC every year, they can still be a child throwing a tantrum who does not deserve any attention.
Can I ask you a question, Leslie? I mean,
Sure.
Has it become like with violence in movies, where, we've become so hardened to it, or in video games, that they have to keep escalating it and make the next series of movies more violent and more violent because we're so numb to the previous level? Has it become that way with outrage?
I think so.
That now we have to escalate outrage. Unless you shout a lot, nobody listens to you. You
You
can't.
can't just be angry about something. You have to be capital outraged.
I was wondering. I mean, are you seeing that too? Because I'm kind of seeing.
I'm on purpose using minor verbs and minor adjectives just to counter the over-the-top hyperactivity that everyone's using.
I just want to sort of interject. Andy, you brought up that the way that culture is sort of degrading and devolving, that everything is getting more graphic and more horrible, and all of that stuff. It's really not, and that's something that sort of dovetails into this story. Is amazingly enough, I actually saw it on Reddit. I'm subscribed to the literature subreddit, and I saw an article in the New Republic that they had posted there, and it was about some students trying to remove Ovid from their curriculum because it's triggering, because there's rape in it. And this goes, we were talking about pagan gods before. There was a whole lot of rape that was going on in Greek and Roman mythology, all of this stuff, and now there's a girl who didn't who felt triggered by the story, and was upset about it, and then the reaction is not, okay, maybe this one person does some other alternative study. No, we need to remove it from the entire class, and probably the professor needs to get removed too, because he let this this transgression occur. It's beyond me that now we have people who are saying that because there's rape in a thousands, a story that's thousands of years old, that we should throw everything out that has anything to do with it because it might trigger somebody.
Yeah, at the whole triggering thing, it's becoming like almost a subculture, I think. And it seems to me like what something Andy always says is that he doesn't want his preferences to be other people's laws. But what we're seeing on so many college campuses, especially with a lot of the articles I've been reading lately, is that these college students are offended by something, and so then they want to ban it. So essentially they want their preferences to be other people's laws or rules. And so when I was reading this article, I kind of saw both sides of the story a little bit. Because on the one hand, if you have suffered a violent crime against yourself, such as a rape, the last thing on earth you're going to want to do is have a reading assignment with a scene or a character that involves rape. But why does it have to be banned? That was my next question, because my thought is, okay, it's a legitimate reason not to want to read that, so why couldn't you have something that was comparable in that same genre of literature to replace that assignment so that you can continue? But I don't agree with saying that the professor needs to be replaced and that the book needs to be banned. To me, that's pretty extreme.
Like, personally, I think that it's, I don't know, there are a lot of different angles on this. I kind of think that in certain cases, a lot of what was talked about in the article is the fact that if this person really has this big of a problem with the subject, that's somebody who really should seek some treatment, should seek some therapy to work through this situation. If the level of post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever, is that high. But again, yeah, it makes sense that there would be some alternate reading list stuff there. But when you think about a class like literature, when you look at classical literature, there is so much. I mean, when it comes to the human experience, these are things that are there, and a lot of these stories involve really horrific and terrible things.
They do, but again, I think this is where you need to show some compassion and flexibility for her position. Especially from a girl's perspective, if I had gone through that myself, the last thing on earth I would want to do is read about it. Because that is going, no matter what, if you're going through treatment or not, it's still going to bring back a lot of really upsetting memories. I mean,
Sure, and I think that takes us to choice versus control.
Right.
The human element, the one-on-one of the student and the teacher talk it out and work it out. Why does there need to be some law or policy or protest or any of that crap? Can't we all just grow the hell up and talk to the people who are offensive to us and see if we can work it out?
Right, exactly. And so that's where I feel like the professor wasn't very understanding of the situation either. Now, granted, I don't know this girl. We don't know anything about her background or her history or her story, but having been a victim of a crime myself, I can tell you it's taken a couple of years for me to get over walking down the street downtown by myself and seeing some strange man come toward me. You know, I've gotten past it. I've worked through the situation, but it's still a reality that you can't control. So if she has suffered a violent crime and she doesn't want to read about the violent crime, work it out with the professor, but don't force everybody else not to read the book.
And if you can't work it out with the professor and you can't read the book, then you take an F on that section, and that's just the repercussion for the way life is. Grow the hell up.
I understand the idea of wanting to put some kind of warning on this material in your class syllabus or whatever, telling someone that these are the incidences that are covered, these are the subjects that might be difficult. I kind of get that idea, but what it makes me think of is every one of these children in college now, their parents were the ones who were objecting when there was warning label discussions on music. It doesn't compute for me.
Oh, that's true. That's true. We're supposed to, they are the people who said that we need to be able to have children listen to profane rock music and not put labels on it, because that's going to be a selection against purchasing, or that label is going to harm the artist, and you're being all judgy McJudgerson on the artists, and we shouldn't do that because judgment is bad and people need to just deal with it. Huh.
And JD, there was a comment in the Reddit thread that you found this in, if I'm not mistaken, saying, "Oh yes, I made the mistake of warning labels were for children, and I made the mistake of thinking of these college students as not being children. Mea culpa, that sort of thing." I think it's fine to put some information that you need, for people that might have traumatic issues at hand. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling somebody that. But again, when you're talking about mandating it, and yet at the same time, everything else in the culture has been pointed in other directions, how do you square that circle? I just don't. I don't see that you can do it unless your objective is to continue to create that outrage that we've been talking about.
And there is every indicator that is exactly what they're trying to do. I mean, it is a self-perpetuating outrage machine on the left from these social justice warrior people. It just, everything is an offense. Everything is an offense, and
because being a victim is cool, and you can get a lot of attention, and you get retweeted, and you might get interviewed by Media Matters or by somebody, and you might get a story on the Daily Cause, and you get your 10 minutes of fame, and that's what it's about.
Right, and I do want to say that I commend the New Republic for posting this article, because it is very much at odds with the current and vogue slant of liberalism that is all about the censorship and all about the this is too edgy and too scary, and I'm going to hide under my covers and drink some chai tea and really, really, really try and forget that this is even a thing. I can't believe that you brought this up, and you should be ashamed of yourself for suggesting that maybe I should read this book. I wonder if 1984 is going to be triggering to somebody. I wonder, what's next in the.
Do they even bother trying to ask black people to read Huck Finn?
Hey, that's super triggering right there. There's lots of racism in that.
Can I just? I just have to say it, and it's from my own conservative lens, and it's an archaic thinking, I'm certain. But didn't we build a society that praised people for overcoming difficulty, not, allowing themselves to be, triggered and exacerbated? There are, I mean, I believe there are things that can re-traumatize a person after they've had a bad event, but wasn't it that we were the kind of people who praised folks and looked up to folks who were defending other people for that instead of crying about their own issues? Again, these are serious things that have happened to people in a lot of cases, but we praised and held up as an example people who overcame and did things in spite of difficulties. And I thought we were still that people. I'm concerned about that generation not becoming those people.
Well, when we're glamorizing victimhood, they don't ever want to become the strong person who overcame. And that's a big concern.
And we also financially incentivize victimhood. And you have to look at, people are rational actors, and if the financial benefit is in getting listed in disability and getting food stamps and getting a poor me blog and being able to get a lot of views on your YouTube video because you're whining about something, and that makes you more popular and more wealthy and gets you more friends than being a hero or an exemplar of success and somebody overcoming. Because the people who are heroes and successes and exemplars of overcoming, those guys are demonized as the evil 1%, or those who are trying to be the evil 1%.
You just gave me a brainstorm. It's not overcoming anymore. It's vanquishing.
Right.
That is the brave thing, the heroic thing. It's vanquishing somebody else who had more power than you perceivably, or something like. It's all about.
It's a win-lose rather than win-win. It's win-lose.
Right.
Somebody has to lose.
But speaking about triggering and about these sort of things that have become so difficult to talk about in society, and that everybody needs their blankets, their snuggies to protect them from all the bad stuff in the world, and of even the thought of being offended.
Snuggies is not a sponsor of this show, though we would be willing to take their money if they chose to be a sponsor. So Snuggies, give us a call.
Absolutely, Slankets too. If we are not, we are fans of combating cold on all sorts of levels. No, but one of the things that we wanted to talk about, just sort of, we would like to end the show on a high note. Jim Gaffigan has a new show out. It'll be coming out pretty soon on Comedy Central, I believe. But he has the first episode up on his website. And Fishy actually posted this. She shared it on her Facebook page the other day. And I was kind of floored by it. The episode was about Jim Gaffigan going to pick up, who's a clean. I should really sort of set this up. Jim Gaffigan is a clean comic. He's religious, but that's not really a big thing of what he does in his routines. But it is clear that he's not the traditional sort of 7 words you can't say on TV. He's not George Carlin. And the focus of this episode of his show was he goes to pick up a Bible that his wife got as an award, or as a gift of some sort for her work in the community with their church. And through a series of events, he goes to a comedy club and has a picture taken of him holding this gigantic Bible, and then just things devolve.
Huffington Post picks it up, and then he's getting interviewed on all of the television shows, and everybody has a different reaction to it. And at one point he's sitting there, and they have actual celebrities doing these roles. He's sitting there across from Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart's asking about this in this ginormous Bible. I mean, really huge Bible, and Gaffigan refers to it as the Tempur-Pedic Bible, and he was saying that he asked the priest to give him the Bible in a trash bag. They are watching Jim and his wife this interview. She turns to him and says, "A trash bag? Really?" And they have this conversation, and it devolves into, "Well, I wouldn't want to make the Shiites mad at me." And she says, "You're more upset. You're more worried about getting Shiites angry with you than your wife?" And he looks back at her and goes, "Well, there's only one of you. There's a billion of them." It's that sort of thing, and this snowballs through this whole episode to where every group is after him. Every conceivable group is after him because he took his wife's Bible with him into a comedy club, and things just went bad from there. And the ending is just adorable. It's really cute. But it's a great social commentary on how almost anything you say publicly anymore as a public persona is going to get picked apart by somebody.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
There were several really funny parts, and you guys should watch it for yourselves just so that you can enjoy this and partake in it. But the thing that really got me was, I don't know, we didn't talk about it here on the Refinery, but something that sort of happened right after the attack in Texas, the terror attack in Texas, was SNL did a skit, or stole a skit, as the case may be, about a contest to draw certain things to win millions of dollars, and the item that they had the guy draw was a picture of Prophet Muhammad. Of course, no one wanted to do this, and the upshot of the sketch was that nobody actually wound up drawing Muhammad, but there was a guess made that, oh yeah, it was the Prophet Muhammad, because that would be the only thing that nobody would want to draw. Whatever. It was good. It was okay. I was very interested at the time when I saw it, but it kind of petered out. The way I felt about it just sort of seemed like a half measure. But again, we don't really know what the censors had to say about it, and what NBC had to say about it. But the kind of where they went on SNL versus where Gaffigan went in this episode, Gaffigan really pushed the envelope to me when it comes to talking about religion and talking about something that really doesn't get talked about outside of maybe South Park, in a real and frank manner about just the consequences of these actions of being, having this very personal thing about you go out there into the aether, and how you will be hit for these things. You will be, called a homophobe because you come out as a Christian. It's just going to happen. Like, the places that this episode went were, groundbreaking to me. They were something that I did not expect to see coming out of any kind of a TV show, but let alone one that's going to be on Comedy Central. It was a very interesting episode.
I thought the best part was that the people in the media were playing themselves in the media, and they were lampooning what media does when these things happen. And for that alone, it's worth watching.
Yes, it's actually really weird. It's so confusing because it seems like they know what they do, and they're making fun of what they do, which means that they understand that there might be something wrong with what they do, but they do it anyway in spite of that fact because it gets views or because that's the narrative that they want to tell. I don't know, but it was strangely cathartic and off-putting at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was something that I've not seen done before, and the acknowledgement of just how difficult putting these things out there and having these things escape. Oh my gosh, this guy is a Christian. That's a big deal. the trash the garbage bag Bible thing also was just the reaction that Jon Stewart has to that was pretty amazing when he made that faux pas on the Daily Show, on the faux Daily Show. Just there are a lot of memorable moments to the episode. It was something worth watching.
And it's a weekly show now?
I don't think it's on yet. It's not going to be.
How did you?
It'll be premiering for real on TV later in the summer, but for right now, the first episode is up on his website. So definitely check that out. It's it's half an hour long, and it streams, so you can do it whenever you want. You can pause it. It's the best thing ever. You can stream the episode and enjoy it at your leisure. Lots of really good actors in it too. Comedians, all that sort of stuff.
So it's not actually. I can't set my DVR for it yet. Is what you're saying? I don't do streaming. I don't. Get off of my lawn. I'm an old lady. Okay, leave me alone.
Just the majority of the views.
I have a TV in my living room.
The majority of the views of this show are done through streaming. The majority of the views of this show come from the clips that people stream on YouTube. That's where they see this.
But that's like a 5-minute video. That's different than watching a TV
No, it's
show
not.
over the internet.
It's so not.
TV shows over the internet. There have been a couple of times that my DVR missed picking up an episode, and so I had to watch it online.
And how convenient is that?
No, it annoyed me. I couldn't skip past the commercials.
You are a shill.
I'm an anachronism is what I am.
No, you are a shill for cable companies everywhere. You are just the
Well,
worst.
I am a happy Uverse customer. And by the way, Uverse is not a sponsor of this show. And if they would like to be, they can contact me via any of the contact methods on my Google Plus profile. So that's 3 companies that we've advertised today for free. We are really crappy capitalists, aren't we? Yikes. Okay, so I think that's going to close the show for the day. Am I right, everybody? We've covered a lot of topics, most of which just kind of made me mad. But I'm now happy to discover that there is a Jim Gaffigan show that will be good and funny, and that I probably will watch online.
And I have to make this point. Jim Gaffigan uses Google Plus.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I follow him on Google Plus, and he promotes his stuff on Google Plus. So good for him. So yay!
Ew, gross. I'm not going to follow Jim Gaffigan now because he's a G Plus user. That's stupid.
Did he mention Hot Pockets during his show?
No, he didn't.
No Hot Pockets.
Yes, they did.
Yes, it came up.
Man.
He was worried about sounding stupid, and the guy said, "You're the guy who's famous for Hot Pockets."
Hot Pockets. Yep.
Damn it, Leslie, that's 4 now.
Oh, God. That's right. That's right. Hot Pockets is not a sponsor of this show, but we would be willing to consider offers. Call me. Okay, so this show is all about soliciting promos or something. At any rate, thank you guys for listening and chatting. And although I did log into the chat room, I didn't really chat much because I don't multitask, as well as I don't stream. Wow, I am a Luddite. Anyway, thank you guys for being patient with me, and great conversation. We will see you guys next Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. Kind of freaks me out that it's already Memorial Day. It feels like spring, but apparently it's already summer. So happy Memorial Day, and go to your local veteran cemetery and say thank you to those that made it possible for all of us to be here today. And let's see. That's it. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Remember to hit our podcast.
Yeah, podcast, video, YouTube, watch all the videos, YouTube channel, TheRefineryShow.com. TheRefineryShow.com. VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And we are on Spreaker and TuneIn and iTunes and everywhere you want to be. Again, that was a slogan of another company that is also not a sponsor.
Yes.
Visa, it's everywhere you want to be. But they're not here unless they pay us money. See you guys next week. I'm just getting silly now. Bye.